If you are looking at moving to Oshawa and you are currently living in Toronto, this will be a video that will just kind of outline the differences along with the similarities of the two. And there's going to be one which is going to be something that people really don't consider, and I'm going to throw that in at some point, so you are going to have to watch, I guess, a lot of the video to find that, and I'll show you different parts of Oshawa as well. That way you can see if it's right for you, and we're going to get into it right after this. So our first one is going to be the obvious one, and it has to do with the cost of living. Oshawa is much cheaper than Toronto when you're going to overall compare things like house prices, cost of utilities. Car insurance is a huge one. If you look at what the cost of car insurance in downtown Toronto is compared to what it is in Oshawa, it's quite a bit cheaper. I saved a ton of money when I moved to Oshawa back in 2012 when I was coming from Brampton. The house prices is to something where the rent, everything overall is just quite a bit cheaper as well. And so that's one thing that makes a lot of people want to move to Oshawa, has to do with the overall cost of living. And then a lot of the other main reason would be the post-secondary schools. So if you're looking to move here because you're going to Durham College, UOIT, or Ontario Tech University, they call it now. And then, yeah, so there's just tons of reasons why people are looking to move to Oshawa. And so the first one, which I'm going to say Oshawa wins, is going to be the cost of living. Our second point has to do with housing, and I know I kind of covered it on the first point, which is the cost of living. The housing options specifically, you have more options within Toronto, whether it be high-rise condos or apartment buildings, different old, like 150-year-old homes that have been like completely redone on the inside. They're huge. The problem is those go for millions of dollars, where within Oshawa, you don't have as many options, but the options that are available would be on a little bit on the lower price points of that to make it more affordable. And that is definitely an option why people who are looking to move to Oshawa, affordability on the housing part does play a major role into that. And then it just has all the different options. So within Oshawa, you don't have as many condos or as many rental apartments and stuff, but you do have those as options as it is. So let's just go on to our next point. If you work in Toronto and you live in Oshawa, back there is something you're going to have to contend to for your commute. So that's something you're going to want to factor into your overall cost of living here as well, because you will have wear and tear on your vehicle. Gas, if you're going to take 407, add that. If you're going to take the GO train, you can add that as well. So you do have different options, but it is something you want to factor in, because the commute from Oshawa downtown Toronto is no joke unless you plan for it accordingly, or at least know what to expect, because the 401, if you're reliant on that, will take years off of your life. It took my hair and my fingernails, and that's going back to 2015. That's how long ago I had to do that commute. Luckily, I'm doing real estate here within the Durham region now, so I don't have to take the 401 unless I'm going, I guess, to Toronto or Brampton, stuff like that. But usually I can make my own hours, and it's not every day, so that's a huge plus. So yeah, the commute is something you're going to want to factor in. The traffic is going to definitely get you on that. Just going to quickly interrupt the video to just remind you that if you're liking the video, to like it. If you have not and you want to be up to date with other videos as I do release them, in terms of what it's like to live here in Oshawa, stuff like that, be sure to subscribe to the channel as well. My name is Brad Gates, and I am a local realtor here within the Durham region, and I've helped so many people move to Toronto, to pretty much Bowmanville, and everywhere in between. So it's been an incredible journey, and I couldn't do it without everybody who's kind of reached out over the last few years. So yeah, if you're looking for that help, all you have to do is call, text, email, send the carrier pigeon, whatever is easiest for you. And I'm here to make everything go so much easier. So I guess thanks for watching this far, and let's just continue into the video. Our fourth point has to do with urban versus suburban. So you have Toronto, which is this urban center, tons of jobs and lots of stuff going on. And then you have Oshawa, which is more on the suburban side, a little bit quieter, not as many jobs available as well. A lot of people who are moving to Oshawa, they do commute, so you're noticing that a lot more. So yeah, you do notice a little bit on that side. It's just more of a quieter pace here in Oshawa compared to the urban center of Toronto as it is. If you've ever driven through Toronto and then you come drive downtown Oshawa, it's hard to compare the two even during rush hour. But yeah, so urban versus suburban, and I would say Toronto gets the point on that one. Our fifth point has to do with the amenities. So you cannot really compare the amenities of Toronto to a place like Oshawa. Geographically, Toronto's land mass is much higher, population much higher. So in terms of the overall amenities, such as restaurants, museums, sporting events, all that kind of stuff, I'll give the points to Toronto for that. But Oshawa's not too far behind in terms of that. So this is like an indoor soccer field. We went there, last time I went there was in 2012. I realized I'm not a soccer player because I was smoking at that time, and yeah, my lungs were just not very good at all. But yeah, super cool that it's an indoor soccer field that's there. The hockey league within Oshawa, we just put my son into it, and it's absolutely amazing. So one thing I really like about it is like one of the more affordable hockey leagues that we can find, and it's on the ice 2 times a week. And so it's just, he's learning so much there. So if you do have kids that you do want to put into hockey, it's the OCHL, which I believe stands for Oshawa Community Hockey League. So they play out of the by the university or Del Park Home Center. So yeah, that's really good. Again, Oshawa's not too far lacking, but the points definitely go to Toronto for that. For just the overall things to do. You'll find that Oshawa kind of shuts down a little bit earlier. Unless it's a Friday, Saturday, then you'll have some bars and like a club or so downtown that could be an option. So that's all out there. Let's just go on to our next point. Our sixth point has to do with education. So Toronto definitely has more post-secondary schools than Oshawa does, but for Oshawa's size, the fact that they have Durham College, Ontario Tech University, Trent University remote campus, Queen's University remote campus, it's definitely not too bad. So it's not a huge gap on that. The schools in Toronto, University of Toronto, York University, those are schools that I feel like more people do want to go there. Harder to get into those schools. I could be wrong, that's just my opinion. So the fact that Oshawa does have a lot of post-secondary schools is really good. The elementary school system in Oshawa, I do think needs some improvement. Over the years, it's kind of ranked lower when you're going to compare it to Toronto. So I do feel like the schools in Toronto would be a little bit better. But at the same time, to each their own, and the Fraser rankings, which are used to rank these schools, haven't been updated since 2019. So a lot has changed within Oshawa since that time, especially with all of the new people that have been moving here. So yeah, the school system within Oshawa, comparing it to Toronto, at this point I would say Toronto is a little bit better on that than what Oshawa is. But again, once Fraser Institute does their rankings and they do update it, I think you'll notice quite a big difference in terms of the education within Oshawa, because I do feel the schools are going to rank higher. But we will have to see what happens with that. Let's go on to our next point. Our seventh point has to do with the traffic. So like, if you're gonna look overall, Toronto loses points on this one, because it does not matter if you're in the off streets, if you're on the 401, the Don Valley Parkway, the traffic is all bad, and it can be at any time. So there's no like, you'll leave early to avoid traffic or stay late to avoid traffic, because at any given time there could be construction, accidents, so much things that just really factor into the traffic aspect of it. You will deal with the traffic on the 401. If you are living within Oshawa, that is something that you will deal with it, because over the years, so many people have moved to Oshawa, and it's just the 401 has been like overly populated to the point where it's pretty bad. It doesn't matter if it's a weekend or a weekday. You can't really beat the traffic. Sometimes you get lucky and there's nothing, but for the most part, there's a lot of traffic back there. So that's something that you're definitely going to want to pay attention to. But I think you lose points within Oshawa and Toronto, because Oshawa, you're dealing 401 traffic. Toronto, you're just dealing with traffic in general everywhere. The only positive is, and maybe this is where we can give the point to Oshawa, has to do with the traffic once you get off of the 401, whether it be Simcoe or Harmony or Stevenson, or I guess maybe I should have gone in order. We'll go Stevenson, Simcoe, Ritson, and Harmony. The traffic kind of eases up a little bit, and it's not too bad. So yeah, that's just something you want to pay attention to, and let's just keep going. Our eighth point has to do with just the nature reserve. So Oshawa is like extremely close. You have Lake Ontario there, and then you have different nature reserves. Like you have we're close to the GM head office there. That's a huge wildlife nature reserve. And then you're close to Heber Downs in Whitby, and then there's another one in North Whitby as well. And then you have Lynn Creek. So you have all these like nature reserves. Toronto has a lot of parks and green space. It's got beaches too, with Lake Ontario really close there. But if you're looking for like nature reserves, you might have to drive a little bit. So I would give the points to that to Oshawa. Downtown Toronto is harder to find these parks and stuff, but they are there, and they do have a lot of green space as well. So yeah, you have Lake Ontario within Oshawa. So I'll give the point to Oshawa for that one, and let's just keep going. Our 9th point has to do with job opportunities. So if you are looking at comparing Toronto to Oshawa, the amount of jobs that are available in tech, finance, entertainment definitely goes to Toronto for that. But if you're looking at the auto industry, for instance, we know Oshawa wins that. A lot of people who work in Toronto, sorry, a lot of people who live in Oshawa, they do commute to Toronto. GO train is super busy in the morning for rush hour, stuff like that. So a lot of the Durham region as a whole, they do commute downtown Toronto, because that's where a lot of the high-paying finance, tech, that kind of stuff, jobs would be. You do have manufacturing, and like GM, they're hiring right now. I don't know how long that's going to happen with interest rates kind of staying what they are. Apparently, from what I've heard, cars aren't selling quite the same way they were about a year ago. So I guess that's good, because the chip shortage, I guess they solved that problem, and now all of a sudden there's lots of cars available. So yeah, who's going to know what happens with GM and their hiring? But you also have OPG within the Durham region. Then you have the school boards, whether it be the Durham Catholic School Board or the Durham School Board. Those are kind of the main employers. And then also you do have like the Ontario government that has an office downtown Oshawa as well. So all in all, I would say Toronto does get the point for the jobs, but Oshawa does have different options available. And let's just keep going. The one bonus point I just kind of wanted to like point out there, and this is from a lot of people who've actually been moving to Oshawa from out of Oshawa and using realtors that aren't here as well, is it has kind of indirectly cleaned up these areas. And so I'm in Lakeview Park right now, which is on the south part of Oshawa, Lake Ontario. And this was an area that for so long was just an undesirable area and nobody wanted to move here. And then just over the years, with everybody moving from Toronto, they didn't know that this was actually a bad area. And so this area really cleaned up. So the last school rankings was done in 2019, and this was an area that ranked very low for the school. And I do strongly feel that this year, when they do update that, the South Oshawa schools is going to increase a lot, because just the people that have come from outside of Oshawa, a lot of new immigrants to Canada have actually, when they're buying their first home, Lakeview was an area that they were really focusing on because it was just really cheap. So certain parts of central Oshawa has happened as well. I've had people reach out where they had bought a home in central Oshawa, and they were like watching my videos after, and they were like petrified that they made a huge mistake because they bought in a bad area. And so it's a lot of that going on that really cleaned up Oshawa. So the Swiggity Schwa, which was what people used to call Oshawa, because it was just this whole like manufacturing type city, has really changed. And it's been because of people who have been moving from out of Oshawa here, not knowing the good areas or the bad areas. So for that, I do thank everybody who's done that, because it's really cleaned it up. Now we just got to remove the stigma that Oshawa has, because a lot of people, when you say you live in Oshawa, or you're from Oshawa, or thinking about moving to Oshawa, a lot of negative goes on about it. But really, if you're going to look at it current day, that's a huge night and day difference over the last like 5 years. And yeah, let's just kind of go on to our last point. Our 10th point has to do with cultural diversity. So if you're going to compare Toronto to Oshawa, Toronto definitely gets the point for that one. But with the help of Durham College, Ontario Tech University, there's just been a lot of cultural improvement. So my wife first came to Oshawa in 2012. She did feel a little uncomfortable at times because it was predominantly white. But then over the years, like, that changed, and we're talking like within a year or two of her moving here, that's when the huge change started. So it was like people from all over the world started coming here, whether it be from China, from India, different parts of the States, to Mexico. It's just been insane, the amount of people who have come here from different cultures. So that's kind of helped with the people who have been moving to Oshawa from out of like Canada. Then you'll have other parts where people come from all over the world. They land in Toronto, they get employment, they get settled, and then they want to buy a home, and then they're moving to the outskirts. And Oshawa was one of those areas for so long. We couldn't even get curry leaves or okra, stuff like that, where we would have to get it in like Toronto or Brampton when we were visiting family. I still haven't found a samosa place that's reasonable or comparable to Toronto. Our go-to is Real Canadian Superstore, so that's not the best. But yeah, so it's like the cultural diversity has changed a lot. In Toronto, it's much better. Like there's people from all over the world in Toronto in high concentrations. They have different areas like Little Italy, Chinatown, all that. Oshawa doesn't have that. They just have Oshawa mixed in with all cultures that are kind of together. So that's kind of like the finishing point for the cultural diversity. This does finish off the video. I hope you liked it. If you did, be sure to like it. If you have any questions, comment, like, subscribe, all that crazy stuff. My name is Brad Gates. I'm a local realtor here within the Durham region. I've helped so many people looking to move here and absolutely love it. So if you want that help, all you have to do, call, text, email, send a carrier pigeon, whatever is easiest for you. And I'm here to make everything go so much easier. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out the other videos on my channel. And until next time.